Good morning, good evening to you, beautiful friends, wherever you happen to be in the world. I hope that you're doing beautifully. And if you're not, I hope that you are at least able to take a moment to really appreciate the fact that if you're able to tune in, first and foremost, thank you for being here, but not to minimize or to dismiss, but you are doing better than more than a few. So, three cheers for that. It's been a minute. I feel like it's the same thing. I'm not trying to, necessarily go viral. I'm not trying to make a career out of, interneting. It's really just more I'm a person here on the planet engaging with everybody else. And so I speak on some things. There's so much in this world and we're all storytellers. It's really important. And I just feel like experiencing this time and, this world, it's really, really important. To quote the great Nina Simone, she said, as an artist, it's my responsibility. I see the world differently. And so it's my responsibility to, help other people to understand, the world is different, not only to create, and I'm paraphrasing to be clear, um, but not having a particular medium, but really thinking it's important. Do you have a soul? Then you're an artist, and that's a beautiful thing. Art is subjective, and funnily enough, because of my incredibly strong opinions, I have really taken a step back, especially because I for a minute have had to really just stop taking any and everything, excuse me. um, as George Carlin said, you can get 27 bagels, but you have a two-party system. It's the illusion of choice, so to speak. So I've taken a step back to help to focus on, what kind of art specifically I want to cultivate. And for lack of a better way to put it, mine is just literally empowering and educating and helping all of you, my brothers and sisters, to just to be here to hold space. I can't help but feel like sometimes we're struggling as people, two people, and maybe it's predictions just because of my environment and the way that people are peopling, and maybe it's because of who I am and being a bit strange and how I perceive things. Because funnily enough, I've spoken of projection, and it's very interesting because projection, as with everything else, it doesn't have to be like good or bad. It isn't inherently positive or negative, so to speak. It is just quite literally that filter of awareness, i.e., I project who I am, my experiences, my thoughts, my beliefs onto what I experience. So, i.e., green. Green's a great one. Green, my favorite color. Also, shout out to you, Glorycroft, your favorite color as well. Um, so, if I were to say green, right away, you're thinking of what your green is, what green means to you. So it really would, especially in these times, it would do us well to remember that and to take ownership and responsibility. Longest introduction ever, right? But it was so neat. I just checked out the timer and it was 3:33. So please take this as your confirmation, though it might not seem like it. We are all on the right path. It doesn't seem like it, but but we are getting to where we need to be, and that's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing. Um, so today's topic is definitely going to be thinking too much, overthinking, just cringe. And this is definitely, trigger warning because I ain't trying to hurt nobody. But as an egghead and as someone who's always been a deep thinker, I've talked about it in other videos and I lament, and sometimes even some of my shorts, I'm just like, ugh, whatever. But as it happens, just trying to spread love and introduce the critical thought process, I get some trolls. I'm perceived as a troll. I get it. It's a dirty business. Here I am. Medicine. Thunder medicine, especially. Um, I'm going to go sideways for just a minute because I've been sitting with the medicine wheel and it's beautiful. It's something that has always been very sad for me. I don't have a good relationship with a lot of my family. A lot of pattern breakers can be perceived as like problematic or, dangerous even to like family systems, the people that don't necessarily take destructive, controlling, abusive, and please understand again, no good, bad language that is used to identify because it's part of the healing process. I have felt bad about it. I felt good about it, like almost sanctimoniously so, if that makes sense. Like, oh, it's a part of their life path. Please forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And this is not to poo-poo on Christianity because talks for other days, my famous catchphrase on forgiveness. And I think sometimes how it can get oftentimes misjudged, you know, um, in thinking that like you're wishing blessings upon blessings on this person, or even, that they have cool pillow every night and perfect sleep. And sometimes that isn't necessarily it. It's just remembering like, hey, they're humans. They have their stuff too that has made them act the way they do. And so I want to speak on that because if ever there is a dynamic, I do want to own because I do speak of my life and instances and things that have occurred. I am never demonizing anyone. In fact, if I'm speaking negatively to something or a dynamic or someone, please know I'm only speaking to the one particular type of energy because that's what I'm speaking on at this point. I am not in a singular narrative. In fact, none of us are, I don't think. But I think that we are not, I've come to observe clearly, we aren't really making a space and we're not holding to that. We're not making time for that. And and it's why things like TikToks and shorts reign supreme. I mean, if you look at my shorts, I've got, videos that have hundreds of views. And God bless and thank you, each and every one of you, just even for taking the time to be here with me and to check out my feed and my content. But it's very interesting. It speaks to the times. Maybe I'm just really boring, or just even the attention spans or what have you. But just I find it very interesting. I think if I were to hit graphics or like I understand it, it's psychology and it's manipulation and it's so wrong, and I refuse to do it because it's in this way that we are kind of without even realizing it taking away from the humanity. Um, and I always go so sideways, but it's just such a part of it. It goes hand in hand, just the overthinking. Funnily enough, and I've talked about it in other videos, I've always felt very wrong. Just yeah, and I don't want to cry. I remember I was gonna actually about the story of Thunderbird, but that, to be fair, that it owns its own, it deserves its own video. Um, because I do, as a I don't even necessarily, because I don't have a close relationship with my family. I have not gotten to learn about a lot of my native ancestry. And at one point, it was a point of contention for a partner of mine. And specifically because of the fact that like he claimed to, well, and he does, he in his way, he believes he very much respects native culture and what have you. I just find it very ironic that it's in theory he respects native culture until it comes to this native woman, and he can't necessarily respect what she has to say or give her platform or honor that. And let me breathe because I'm not trying to trauma dump, and it's all love, and they have their healing and their lessons. But it was beautiful because, funnily enough, everything happened as it's meant to. And then I ended up getting to go and aligning with some energies and getting to learn and study a bit. And I'm now getting a chance to really travel the medicine wheel myself. And so that's actually what got me into like wanting to talk about Thunderbird, for example. But I'm having once been pronounced as a thunder being and someone who carries thunder medicine. There were always so many different interpretations. And, nowadays, especially with like the INFJ stuff, and like you'll see things like the Hoyoka empaths, and it's very interesting to see people identify in these ways. And yet, funnily enough, like in speaking to them, this isn't just to be like, oh, poor pitiful me, I have the most awful story ever. But it's, again, we are wanting to identify and we are wanting to heal and collect or connect, and we aren't necessarily. So in that, I mentioned thunder medicine because it goes full circle. And it's very interesting because obviously when traveling the medicine wheel, um, you don't necessarily want to stay static. I mean, no matter what, that's the point of life. You're growing and evolving and all of that. So it's just neat to get to be sitting with that. Excuse me, I need to wet my palate. It was actually in that spirit because I have been just always felt very wrong, like I was saying, and I've always been incredibly triggering. Um, I've mentioned in past videos, like from a small age, like I learned how to read from the book of Genesis, from the Bible. And that in and of itself is very strange. Like I have a very interesting relationship with God because I love God and I love Jesus, but not necessarily specifically the ways that we are taught or what we're taught and how to do that. So I, in another life, wanted to, in the path of academia, pursue my doctorate in ancient polytheism, and I did not. But to be fair, and having both academic and like actually having taken college courses and doing the institutionalized route but then also studying independently, I will tell you the truth, being a lifelong nerd, like it's absolutely always been independently that I have actually garnered the most information, just genuinely being curious and learning better. And it's just talks for other days about how education isn't even necessarily readily available, the ways that curriculum is taught, not even necessarily teaching you to think, to question what you're taught, to hold space for multiple narratives, to understand application and circumstance. And there's just so much. So, overthinking, because I piss people off and I've always felt wrong. And allegedly, we think we're okay and what have you. But I tell you what, I'm 41 years old and it still always comes back to the same thing. Nothing in this life so far has actually convinced me that we're doing it right. So maybe I'm just that crazy. Maybe I'm not stubborn. Maybe I'm that challenged, what have you. But if I still haven't seen anything yet, it's it's pretty apparent. We need to just calm down. And it's interesting because we are so progressed. We've got all this technological advancement, etc. And yet, funnily enough, we're still letting people starve on the streets. We talk about competition for resources, etc. And yet, yeah, we just don't value life inherently. And I've thought about this, okay, because people are like, oh, people wouldn't work, etc. And I don't think that's even necessarily the case. I think again, it's with this weird strict regiment and control. Imagine if like everyone were issued a Fitbit, right? And let's say then as long as you met your certain quota of like clocked track time, you were given dwelling space, food, and clothing. And let's say maybe you wanted, to do like extras or whatnot. Like, what's to say if you didn't just have to clock in for your certain amount of time and you just didn't have these basic things covered that people wouldn't want to work? That's just it. I think we would. I think unfortunately there are car salesmen who would be better plumbers or teachers, perhaps, or even plumbers and teachers that would also be great at teaching music. And it's just, again, our system is so backwards because of the ways that we have to monetize to then actually say that we need to do and make everything. And it goes into like the mindless distractions because we need movies and we need all of this and we need so much because we're not actually coping and we're not okay. And please don't shoot the messenger because I freaking love you guys. And no, it doesn't seem like it, but it's sort of like having to detox. You know what I mean? Like, I love you so much that I want more for you than to have to actually continue to just work at jobs you don't like, etc. Like all of this weird coveted hoarding of the resources, etc. And again, I went so sideways, right? It's that darn overthinking. But what is overthinking? Well, I think like everything else, it's a spectrum, not overthinking per se, but that particular label, that identification. I don't know that it is possible to overthink. And as an overthinker, I will tell you what made me come to that realization. I have worried that quite literally I'm going to like think myself into a stroke or an aneurysm because it's just clearly you see the thought process. I'm just unpacking all of these things. And I feel like that meme of Charlie in Always Sunny Philadelphia where I'm just like, ah. But I do. I can't help but see how it's all sort of interwoven and again talks for other days. People, again, they love to, when people are uncomfortable or when they're triggered or when perhaps it's outed that they haven't necessarily observed these types of things, it's very easy to condemn or demonize, i.e., overthinking. Overthinking is so bad. What, you just sit and think? Sometimes I have. And in my younger days, this is where I understand where perhaps the label came in. Let's say that, things that could be identified as, psychological issues. I mean, what some people, I argue spirit, but what some people would say, like schizophrenia, for example. To be clear, I don't hear voices. But if I did, um, and I mean, let's unpack that for a minute, because actually, to be clear, and again, I speak vaguely on things because I do want people to do their own research. I understand that understanding is still, again, subjective to the individual. So even me speaking on it, you're still going to grasp it better if you form your own thoughts and opinions. I don't want you to like cleave to mine. And it's so unfortunate because so many people have been like, in my past, like, you just want everything your way and you just want me to agree with you. No, not at all. But I don't want you to tell me that what I see is stupid or wrong because you don't see it or you don't understand it. Just own that. But cognitive dissonance, and it hurts, right? Because I think you're stupid or you feel stupid, or it's very unfortunate because shame, feelings, again, we talked about projection earlier. And it's human nature because I do it too without even realizing it. Let's say that someone is like, well, what do you mean? Why don't I like, why are you mad? That's projection. I don't know if they're mad. I just know that they're kind of coming at me loudly, assertively. And so that should be on me to kind of humble myself and say, hey, like, maybe it's me, like maybe it's on me, but you seem like are you cool? Are we cool? Like what's going on here? What do you think is going on here? And again, overthinker. But I think that's just it. I think that it was a label by people that perhaps felt a bit inferior about the fact that maybe they don't feel like deep thinkers, that they don't realize that they think, and they just haven't necessarily made the connection. And I think that's what's really unfortunate is that we all think. Like, I think we are making ourselves feel like we're not smart because we're choosing to not think, or because, and it's choice, like it's laziness. At the end of the day, it is a very real truth that what you understand about something is still just the tip of the iceberg. Nothing. Oh, look, Lou says hi. And that makes me so happy that he's using his kitty tree. So you guys can see that he's loved and he's happy. I made a short with him one morning when I woke up and I was really hyper, and he wasn't feeling it. So on that note, that's probably the sign from the universe. Like, girl, you need to wrap it up. So I have things to get to anyway, but I did want to take a moment to say and unpack and just spread some love and get everybody to think a bit, because it really was. It was funny. It was from a comment feed with a person, and I had explained to them because those internet responses, like when I type things, people will be smart and they'll be like, "Oh, nice doctorate, smart ass," or just really short clickbait responses. And whether I understand people probably perceive me as a bully, but I don't bully. So when it becomes apparent that perhaps you might be lacking mental faculties, like hindered mental development or emotional regulation development, I can't engage with you. I understand that you're an older person, like you're in an older body, but if you're not demonstrating that, like, it's not right, it's not fair. It's like someone with dementia or like a child. I can't. Um, it's not right. And unfortunately, I don't mean this meanly, a lot of people are very much coming across that way. And it's in murdering that ability to think. And I'll start with myself. I was a voracious reader as a child. Like, I loved to read. And I could honestly go through books, I could go through a few books. I don't know if you remember, like, the Pizza Hut program. I blame them, actually, not just for me being a foodie, but because I'm old enough that you can, like, earn food to eat, and it was glorious times. So not only did I read, also reading Rainbow Butterfly in the Sky, I'm gonna make you cry. Um, I kid. Um, but I used to read all the time. And funnily enough, like nowadays, because I've gotten used to just listening to, and I'm not even a big book, like an audiobook person, but listening to podcasts or other people talk and whatnot. And I don't know, I found that it was very hard for me sometimes to just sit for a minute. Even though I don't know, I can enjoy sitting mindfully or meditating, but even just like sitting in my hammock and trying to read a book, it was getting to be a bit frustrating at certain points. So I had to really stop for a second and do like a media detox and something in that truly. It's in the neurological transmitters and the wiring and the synapses that have to form. Because the process of actually making the eyes scan the words, having to think about what you're interpreting, if that makes sense. Again, we don't think, right? We do. And this is a great example. Read something. Oh, I love it when the universe comes to me. It's like, girl, speak. You be looking wild. Here we go. Spirit. Testify. And be a person of science, faith, what have you. It's sorry, I'm not trying to like spew my beliefs, because I have been that person where, like I've mentioned, I love God, but I didn't always have a great relationship with God, if that makes sense. Because of my incredibly hard life path, I've said things to God that I honestly don't know that I would have dared to say to another human being, because they might have punched me in the face or what have you. And God's forgiven me. I mean, here I am, not smited. Hi, Sagey baby. I love you. Um, so it's, I mean, literally, like I have said some of these to all of, and I'm truly, I urge each and every one of you to do this. When you're in pain, if you just feel like nobody's getting you, scream it, like Lieutenant Dan in The Storm for first Forrest Gump. um Look at Lou leaving the ginger devil. He's named after a pagan, Lou of the long arm, so I get it. He's like, girl, but everything is everything, and I digress. um I, at certain points, when people in faith, like, and I knew that they meant well, but when they'd be like, well, I'll pray for you, I'd just be like, I don't need your prayers, man, shove it up your butt. Or it just, I understand, because it can sometimes seem really hoity toity. And I'm just grateful for this place in my life to, as I see it, God just being love, what have you. As I mentioned, learning to read from the Bible. I'm a Gnostic, Valentinian Christian. Essentially, the people that were burned at the stake, Hermeticists, along those types of lines. So, before the King James Bible and a lot of the edits, think like a game of telephone. The further you get from source, things start to get a little wonky. The Gnostic scriptures were found circa the 1930s and 40s. I can't remember specifically because I'm a nerd that likes to learn a lot, so I beg your pardon. And this is where, again, aggro bros want to be like, well, you're not that smart because you don't know. Well, again, I'm not trying to tell you that smart is to remember factoids. So there's that. It's not an ego pissing match. I'm trying to just help people be aware of things. We're going to co create, learn, explore, what have you. So, talks for other days, but we're all doing so well. We are, to be clear. But the non commodity scriptures, which actually, interestingly enough, the Pista Sophia is essentially a recreation of Jesus from Good Friday to when he arose on Sunday. He actually speaks to the disciples of what he learned. So, if any of you are curious, and again, these people were burned at the stake for heresy, but the Jesus that speaks to, like, why do you look to me? You can do what I do and greater. The Jesus that seems very different from what people kind of perpetuate him to be, the kind of punk rebel Jesus. I feel like personally it delves into that quite a bit more. Um, but I digress, because as ever, everything's open for interpretation. Thinking, overthinking, reading. Reading specifically, reading something is causing you to think, because your eyes have to interpret. You are quite literally having to create the mental headspace. And hearing, just directly, not having to use the eyeball, human organs, you are losing a bit. So, food for thought from the overthinker. But that being said, I challenge you I challenge you to a duel. Not even. I lovingly call you in to consider all of this jibber jabbing that I've been doing, to consider, because I tell you what, all of this overthinking, all of what I've been doing, it's helped me to really learn to love myself, love other people, whether I'm going to see them again, whether not, whether they're going to do something for me or not. Now, again, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So part of my path was also growing up with a lot of trauma, learning to not nursemaid and to give. In fact, a lot of my dynamics that I've had to disconnect from were people wanting to weaponize ignorance, perhaps, or just benefit from all of my understanding and continue to identify as patterns and wounds and not take ownership and accountability and not be empowered to change their stories. You know, they wanted to stay static, and that's just so counterproductive to life. And I don't mean to be callous, and I wish them well and I wish them love. And I love them. I wax and I wane because I'm human, so I have to sometimes sit with the pain and unpack it. But how can I not love them and be grateful for their part of my story? And want them to be happy and their best. Even if at certain points I might end up speaking to things that they've done. I mean, I did earlier in this video to a certain extent. But to that particular person, I hope you're doing so well, truly. But again, you know, it's, as I said, showing up lovingly and unconditionally. That doesn't mean just continue to give of yourselves. That means make sure to also not just surround yourself from people that want to feed off you. Even if they don't want to feed off of you, if they're not doing anything to reciprocate or to help nourish you as well, they're feeding off of you. And that's okay. Because again, we got to work on not demonizing them. They're not demons. Overthinking, what can I say? But we can also work to advocate and protect ourselves. And trust me, I see things very differently. I mean, talks for other days, even just the ways we could reform our justice systems and the way that we deal with criminalization, just all of this. Because, you know, we're people. And for continuing on this journey and progressing and getting the advances of technology, I really hope that if all else fails, we can remember that. We all bleed red and we are all brothers and sisters. And like brothers and sisters, we don't necessarily get along. And, you know, when you're like XXYY brother sister, and like if you're a brother and sister in this journey, and like brother and sister in Christ, but then like also a brother and sister in like earth parents, I mean, definitely be mindful of how you're loving each other specifically, and like biblically. To each their own. You know, who am I? It's not for me, and I don't want to know about it. We'll just leave it at that. So, I guess, yeah, a really bad example to end on my apparently overthinking is really bad because here we are. Funnily enough, I was talking to my friend today about donor based cannibalism. Talks for other days. I tell ya. So, on that note, I am loving you this day and always, and just keep on keeping on. Don't be afraid to sit with your thoughts. Don't be afraid to honestly just embrace it. It's not a bad thing. Now, be mindful. You can control your thoughts. I know it sounds serious. Let's say that you think that it's literally behavioral therapies, all types, honestly. But it's just about getting implementation behaviors in practice. Rubber band on the wrist is a good one. It's just about practices and becoming aware. Once you realize that you're thinking about something, stimming. Tap therapy is really good too, even just to help kind of, if you're really frenetic or something, in something, excuse me, you can just do tapping. So it's just about learning yourself and being mindful of yourself. Like you and you got you. And if you're lucky, and that's great, you will meet wonderful people who aren't just necessarily aligning with you for what they can get. And I don't truly, to be clear, I don't believe that this is how most people operate. I do believe that people like comfort. I do believe, obviously, we don't like to be in pain, etc. And I do believe that a lot of times, unfortunately, people don't challenge themselves to go outside of their comfort zone, and that's okay. I think trauma made me like really, really kinky. So I'm constantly just like, no, I don't like this, can't handle it. I don't know. But talks for other days. I digress. I'm loving you this day and always. And again, just be mindful. Always. Overthinking? Never. Mindfulness. Let's keep changing the world.